FX Ancient, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. And what we're going to do in this video, guys, we're going to take a deep dive into pound JPY. Pound JPY seems to be a very popular pair that a lot of retail traders trade. And so I figured let's take a look, let's take a deep dive into that particular pair and do some back testing on it so you can kind of see and hear my thoughts as every day goes by, as every candle goes by, so you can get a better understanding as what my thought process is when I'm thinking about taking a trade or as I'm back testing and collecting data for the next possible day. We're gonna have 2 weeks of pound JPY, meaning two different videos that cover 1 week at a time. So this is the first one, and the next video will cover the second week of it. So we'll take, again, it's a really deep dive into pound JPY. So I hope you enjoyed, and please like and subscribe, and enjoy the video, guys. All right. So what do we get the previous week from that?
It's like a market maker cycle.
Right. You got a market maker cycle. Um, and then the previous week before that, you ended up getting a trending cycle. And you're coming off of a huge peak here. Clearly, all your indicators, all your EMAs are above price. So automatically, you almost have the, what you call it, the assumption, right? What's the assumption when you see that?
Price is going to keep going down.
Right. That's the assumption, right? That price is going to keep going down. Now, I got a better question for you: is how long has it been? That price has gotten a off of that peak. You know, so off of this has been 1, 2, 3 weeks, right? 3 weeks of mostly down movement, except for this here that had basically a retracement for a week, right? If we look at this 1 hour time frame, what are like obvious points of structure? What's the most obvious point of structure?
Where price is now, or to go lower than that, like 139.5, I would say.
Right. So if you look, there's definitely structure here, here, and all through here, right? So this entire area here, there's definitely some structure. You could see there's points where it got rejected, and then passed, and then went up, then came back down again. So we'll just keep that. We'll just keep that in mind here. There's also some structure here, here, throughout this whole area, and then obviously up at the very top. This almost looks like a head and shoulders pattern, like a really big one. All right, let's see. And also, we're coming off the bottom, as you can see. We're coming off the bottom here on the TDI. You see that? On the 1 hour. Um, 4 hour, same thing. We're bouncing off the bottom here. So if the bigger time frame is already bouncing off the bottom, it actually could give you a sign of price actually moving higher, not lower. But regardless, you got to let price action tell you what it's going to do. And just out of curiosity, what was the move so far? Yeah, so 700 pips. And this is all before pandemic or anything like that. So What's the ADR right now on pound JPY? Like 110 or something like that. I would assume.
Yeah, right around 110, 112.
Yeah, yeah. So you're figuring. I don't know if it's if it was normally that big back then, but you figure 90. It's actually more bigger back then. Yeah, so it's way more than 300 pips per cycle. But so when I look at this and I see that, I see this pattern here. This looks like to me this would almost be like a first leg. This would be almost like a second leg here, but it didn't come all the way down. Obviously, you can see the two dojis here. Um, does anybody see anything there, or is it just me that sees that? Or is it just that I'm used to seeing all this stuff?
Yeah, I seen it.
So for me, obviously, this is probably way too big of a candle, anyways. Yeah, it's like a 30 pip candle. So if I'm looking for any kind of a setup here, or any kind of a possible trade, I would need a pullback to get into something like that. Although if you pay attention to this and you see, big red candle followed by literally two dojis back to back, I mean, you got to start to expect, something like this going to happen. You have also a nice W there as well. The question is, the next candle will pull back? It's not. So, all right. So, I mean, pretty interesting. You had, how big was this move here? 121 pip move in the um, in the London session. 121 pip move. So, I mean, you're already past all of these EMAs. So, the only thing that's tradable here, obviously, would be an M down, but that's only going to give you limited uh, limited play here, or a continuation trade to go higher. But you would really want it to maybe bounce off the. You really want it to bounce off the 50, but the 50 is way too low for that to happen unless price literally does one of these and then does that. Um, so you're probably maybe likely to get a bounce off the 200 instead, since it's right there. The question becomes, is that far enough down to where it makes going back up and making an M impossible, or just too far away? So you're looking for to the 200 here, it's what, 47.2 pips. So if you get a bounce off of this 200 here, that would make it, pretty close to 50 pips off of what you presume right now is the high of the day. So it'd make it pretty hard to say, hey, this is going to be, a second leg and come down or whatnot. It's more likely to be a continuation trade to go up. But we got to see what happens here, because you can also see this is overextended as well. What do you think is happening when you see this?
I think it's just gonna move sideways for the rest of the day.
Yeah, sideways. I don't think this is going to move down It's either sideways movement finishing out the day like this, or you would get maybe one more hit up to hit the 800. But it's created like little, you know, whatever you want to call that, a little mini structure here. So the ideal thing would be if you could get a trade or a candle that pushes down to this bottom here. You can take a trade that has like a super small risk. Um, so like, it could be something like this, where you're just aiming to do something like that. And you're basically trying to catch, like, let's say a wick that comes down here and then does that. If it doesn't do that, then obviously it'll just take you out in the next couple of candles, which is fine. But you would want something like that as a possible trade, because there's no way this is what, 9:45, 9:30 in the morning. You're not going to have enough time to go back up and then come back down. That moves out. So the only play that you have here is to go up, or if they don't want to do that, then obviously they'll just settle and move sideways. I mean, I think a lot of it really depends on, at this time, back in 2019, what was the average ADR on this pair? Because if it was back then, let's say if it was 150, this would only leave you a very limited number of pips to left for the day, and you could very certainly see that, moving just straight sideways. However, if, let's say, if this was, I don't know, 180, as far as pips average daily movement for the day, then you could definitely see a move going back up, because you still have more room to get more pips. If that makes sense. But it honestly just depends, because I mean, look at the day before, you had 89, 92, 59. So even the day before that, 130, 46, 68. So this back then was a really high average moving pair back then. So seeing it's something like this right there that you could have had as an entry there. One of these. All right, so going into Tuesday, you made a huge move up on Sunday, Monday. So whatever happens on Tuesday ultimately helps you determine what kind of a weekly cycle you could get, or what kind of moves essentially you could potentially see here. Check this to pins to the 200 here. Your TDI is super extended already here. You see that? I mean, this right here, what you see here, this pattern here of price action, and then it goes below this, comes up and goes above this. What do you think this does here? What do you guys think that price action movement like that does? What's the purpose of that?
That takes out buy side liquidity, get people in the market early to go long, and then come back against them and then move the market.
Right? And it takes them both ways too. So it'll grant out at first it'll get all of the sell orders here, right? And it'll trigger all the sell orders. Then they go right back up, a bunch of all buy orders here, and along with the stop losses that these guys had that are all up here. So they do so much with just that move like this, that go under and then up and it gets both of them on either end. That's it. This is probably the only thing that you can get here. Maybe be like a W here, but this would only probably go up to the 50 or the 800, and that wouldn't even be anything close to a trade. You'd have to like literally get it down here for it to make any sense, because I think that would only be, it's only 18 pips, and then from somewhere down here would be 40. So that'd make a hell of a lot more sense, but speak of the devil, that would be right here like a second leg. What do you think? Anybody think this would be a second leg, with this being a first leg here? If this was a first leg here, because of the pin bar, you have a pin bar here, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 candles on the apex and a railroad track. Is that showing? I mean, technically, this is reading this as a first leg, and this is reading in the second leg. So if it's like that, and this is like that, there's your divergence. I think the question is that going to be a that's going to be probably too big, yeah. Yeah, that's not going to make any sense to do that. It's too much risk, 22 pips, unless you get a pullback on the candle. You need at least, what, half? Yeah, at least half of the candle, and then that would make way better sense. Over 2.5 to 1 almost. What do you think about this trade setup? Is that a possible trade setup, or is that a good setup, a bad setup?
For me personally, I would have been looking for another period of trade because that would look too crazy to me. But I mean, you know,
I can see the setup, but it's only because I'm looking at something else that has nothing to do with this strategy. But
Yeah.
candle's kind of big. It looks like it's hitting the order block, and it does look like it wants to go up. And they already hit the stops down low. So
Right. All right. So what do we have so far in the sense of, the week? I mean, you got now you got a 115 pip Asian range. 115 pip Asian range.
It's like an accumulation cycle.
Looks like it, right?
Looks like
I mean, you'd have that range there basically to keep intact, essentially. So probably, the ideal setups that you would want if this is an accumulation cycle would have to be like up here and down here at the tops or the bottoms, or if you don't get them from the tops or bottoms, if it's not going to be that type of a cycle, then you would really need to have a good pattern with good confirmations to take that. Because I mean, you could, theoretically, essentially take trades up or down, up or down, up or down, depending on what the price action looks like. But I mean, this is 115 pip Asian range is pretty big there on that for that pair. So
You also got all the TDIs going through price too.
You talking about the EMAs going through
Oh
price?
yeah, EMAs. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at least it made it to the top there. So yeah, these EMAs here are going to keep it from going back down that far. So it's going to be trading this pretty hard for that day. Is there anything good that comes out of this at all? What do you think?
Information low.
Well, no, I'm thinking in the sense of like because of this crappy, you know, shit show on Wednesday, you actually got the price to come back up here, you know? So potentially, if this high holds here, you could be looking for sells. And then also you're also at the very top of the bands here on the TDI as well. What are your thoughts?
That looks like a possible sell setup to me.
Right.
And there's divergence on the TDI.
I was about to say that. Yeah, you got two equals here. Obviously, divergence there as well.
Railroad track.
Railroad track. You got 1,
Wait for
2,
a
3, 4,
pullback
5,
for an
6,
entry.
7. Yeah, so you got 8 candles in between the apex there, the first, second leg, and then you can use EMAs basically as take profits.
And there should be a pullback for an entry, and this candle's too long.
Yeah, it is probably gonna be too long. Yeah, it's like 20 pips, but you figure 50. You're aiming for 53 pips, and then a gift would be 64 if it goes to the 800. So you would want a pullback, some kind of a pullback to happen for sure. Because I mean, now you're looking at 3.5, almost 4-1 risk to reward ratio on it. Does that make sense? That make a hell of a lot more sense. So you want to pull back.
Is that the 50% of the long candle?
This right here.
Yeah.
That's 10. See 10 pips. Yeah, actually, it's because this candle here is 16 pips, and from the top to where the pullback is 9.
That's
so yeah,
cool.
pretty much, yeah.
Perfect entry. Ideally, it would test the bottom of the US box before, the day before.
The bottom of the US box, like down here, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of congestion there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, right now, like right here, if you start thinking about this, I mean, this looks like it could be a reversal. You know what I mean? Because this low is holding.
And you still have a
So as
divergence
long
on
as
the TDI.
this low holds, and yeah, exactly, the TDI is already starting to go higher. As long as this low holds, this would give you a reversal trade during the U.S. session.
Well, the green is crossed the red at the TDI, so it's a bullish signal.
Yeah, I mean this thing crossed like super early down here, you know.
No, I mean the last cross is what I meant.
Oh, right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this is probably that's 30 pips, same thing, right?
Yeah.
So you would have needed to essentially enter on the pullback of that candle, of this candle here.
Right.
Because this right here, when you see this big bullish candle, this candle literally took out how many candles before it, you know, like over an hour and a half
Yeah.
of trading. And that low still held no matter what.
So if you mark a horizontal line on the bearish candle, two candles before, the second bearish candle, not that one. No, go to your right. Go to your right. Right. More. That one there. So the low of that candle would be your entry. Not the low, but the low of the body of the candle.
Yeah. So I mean you only got a 9 pip pullback on that one candle there. So if you were to do from this candle on, you still have about 20 pips.
Yeah.
Not enough. You know what I mean? Because I mean you're only getting 25, so you're barely at a 1-to-1.
Yeah, that's why you would want to come a little lower.
You would definitely want, you'd want to come like down here.
Yeah.
Now you're talking 14 pips, but now you're trying to get 30 again.
Right.
Yeah, so that would make a hell of a lot more sense to take a trade setup like that. All right, so again, we're back to this top again here, testing out this this top again. So I'm gonna move this because obviously we're testing a little bit higher than before, but still in that range, right? So as long as we stay within that range, you're still looking for, a possible sell again. It's only when we break out of this that we're really more looking for buys. And this would really, if we get a sell here that can actually go past all this stuff, we could kind of do a better sense of an accumulation cycle.
And the TDI showed a clear divergence from the price.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the London session.
Yeah, I mean, I almost think like if this is going to be, if you're going to have this crap in the middle, is what it is.
Yeah.
And we're about to enter the New York session. If this all holds here, then obviously the clear option would still be to sell.
Right.
The question becomes, okay, are you selling? What are you selling to? What what does the setup look like with these candles being the way that they are? You know what I mean? And does it give you enough to get something out of it? And out of any of three of these take profit points. But right now, the only thing that I would be looking at is that I'm thinking about is like 1, 2, and 3, and then drop again.
Yeah, I mean the TDI, the peaks are lower.
Right, the peaks, everything's lower. Yes, exactly. Yeah, see.
There's a railroad track.
Yeah.
And there's a pullback.
There's another one too.
Yeah.
So you got railroad tracks upon railroad tracks. So I don't think 14 pips. I mean, you'd have to really aim to this. But 2-to-1 is like somewhere right there. Unless you take it on this candle here.
Right.
If you take it on this candle here, then that's ridiculous. But if you don't, and you take it on this railroad track, 20 pips doesn't seem very much sense unless you get a pullback. So regardless, you'd want, if you take it on this blue candle, it would be based off of the fact that you're looking at this railroad track here, or if you take it here, you're basing it off of this railroad track at the second leg, but on this one you would need a pullback to get a better entry.
So if you took the entry on the first railroad track at the bottom of the body,
Right, you'd be way better off, yeah, because
on the pullback, yeah, and then
the
go from there.
15 pip, and then now you're at 2.5 to 1.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you do get a pullback on that one too.
Right. They had 2 chances to get in at that.
Yeah, exactly. 2 chances to get in, yeah.
How do we come down to the 800? Because tendency is to come to the bottom, right? This channel. There you go. Next day, but you don't wait that long, obviously.
Yeah, so I mean, you figure on this week you had, is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trades on one pair. It's not bad, right?
No, you got about 30 pips each. So
I mean, 37, 30, 57, 35, and 52.
yeah, it's almost 200 pips.
All right, guys. So welcome back. I hope that you got a lot out of that video, out of that week of backtesting. I know the videos are long. Obviously, they're long for a reason. It takes time to study. It takes time to break down thoughts to really see, what is it that you could possibly do in the situation given, depending on what the patterns are, what the previous week is, what previous day is. So it takes time, but this is what you have to do in order to be good at what trading is all about, right? So if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. If you like the content, like the video, guys. And if you're new to the channel as well, please check out the Trading with Market Makers playlist. It has the entire strategy there for free. All right, guys. Until next video, thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.